Hello and welcome to my spoiler review for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I'm all ready to go. I got my shirt on that they gave me at the press screening. And speaking of the press, I am so disappointed in this movie's Rotten Tomatoes score. Currently, as of the filming of this spoiler review, it sits at 59%. Oh my God! And the last Jurassic World has a 71%. Personally, this is what I think happened. I feel that some critics were embarrassed to have gone too easy on the last one. And I think they did that. You know, sometimes some critics, they don't want fans to get angry with them. So on blockbusters where they're like, who cares? You know, it's not exactly where you gotta, you have to take a stand in terms of, cinema, the cinema, right? And so let's just give this one to the fans. Why fight them over it, right? But then the fans, for the most part, were like, I don't like Jurassic World that much. Although it's like well over $1 billion. But a lot of people complained about it. So anyway, my theory is that critics were like, we were too easy on that one. Let's make up for it by being too hard on this one. But that's really unfair. As I said in my non-spoiler review, this is the best entry since the first one. And you might be like, well, why don't they just review the movie, Grace, right? And I think that's the problem with blockbusters. I think that a lot of people who are reviewing them hate them, and just like some of the people who make them, right? They don't know what people want in blockbusters, so they have a problem making them and judging them. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes that's why audiences come to the rescue of a movie. And not always just foreign audiences. Sometimes U.S. audiences will do it as well. And I hope that they do, because JA Bayona really nailed it. Again, best entry since the first film in this franchise. And I feel bad that this could hurt his career. But if audiences rally, as it looks like they're doing so far overseas, well, then we could have, at least a silver lining on this horrible Rotten Tomatoes score. It's going to hurt the franchise, and it's going to keep the movie from, I think, reaching the box office heights of the first one. Maybe. It's equally strong out of the gate. So, I really hope audiences rally on this one. So I'm going to convince you, if my non-spoiler review didn't convince you, hopefully the spoiler one will convince you to go. Because again, you can see it multiple times, even after you know what's going to happen. And I implore those of you who've also already seen it to help me out with an assist in the comments down below. All right, so for this spoiler review, I'm going to start out with the story, and then we'll talk about the main characters, right? Because, sometimes when it's like a really complicated movie, I'll just go by character. But I think that the story, to me, was like one of the best parts of this movie, and certainly some particular story elements and scenes. And on that note, let's start with the scene that we're all talking about, the scene that I singled out in my non-spoiler review as being the scene that makes the movie. And ever since then, a number of you have been tweeting me after you see the movie that, oh yeah, you know what scene I'm talking about, and it got to you too. So sad. So this is the scene. It's just so visceral, and the fact that this scene exists in this movie and they pulled it off and it still is labeled rotten is a travesty of justice. Oh, and by the way, if I go to Wikipedia when I'm doing my spoiler reviews to refresh my memory sometimes of what happened, or just to like check my memory, because sometimes you remember things out of order, and they didn't put this scene into the Wikipedia plot description. I was like, how do you not include this scene? Because I forgot what dinosaur it was, who's standing on the docks, left behind as the island explodes. Oh my God, why did the dino try and swim for it? I felt so bad for this guy. But I was like, what kind of dinosaur is that? Because I don't know my dinosaurs very well. So that's one of the reasons I was also on Wikipedia. And the fact that it wasn't there disgusts me. It disgusts me as much as the Rotten Tomatoes score. But anyway, it was amazing. So Bryce Dallas Howard, Chris Pratt, and Justice Smith just made it onto the boat. Last call to get off of this exploding island, literally, Isla Nublar. And then Bryce Dallas Howard is, rushing out of the van, and she, because she was driving. Very well directed, edited scene when she gets onto the boat with the van. And she's like, what's everybody looking at? And she turns around, and there's this dinosaur on the dock, at the end of the dock, just watching the boat, being like, can I come? Are you really going to leave me behind? And I was just gutted. And I think partially because it was so unexpected. As I said in my non-spoiler review, this was a first act scene. You don't expect that kind of emotional gut punch that early in a movie. But they got me. They got me good. I think I've yet to hear one of you say who's seen the movie that this scene didn't get to you. It's amazing. It's like the raccoon on Twitter last week stuck on the outside of that office building. It's like you're so close to this animal. How can you not help it? And the fact that you can't help it is devastating. That's what I think got to people about the raccoon. And as I filmed this early because I'm traveling this week, but I hope that raccoon had a happy ending to his story. But the fact that he's just a pane of glass away, and you're like, how can I not save you, is devastating. And it was the same thing here with this dinosaur. It's right at the end of the dock. They can see it, and yet they can't save it. It was the most impactful scene or argument I've ever seen for protecting animals. Like of all the pamphlets that I've been sent and all the little PSAs, none of them got me like this, where I was like, we should save the animals. And so kudos to not only Bayona, by the way, for putting that scene together so well, but also to Bryce Dallas Howard, I think, for really selling it from the human perspective on the other side to safety on the boat. Amazing. It should be one of the most famous scenes in cinematic history, but it won't be because of that damn Rotten Tomatoes score. God damn it. All right, so now the story structure in this movie is somewhat disjointed. You've got 50% of the movie on the island, 50% of the movie on the Lockwood Estate. That's unusual in a movie that, movies have a 3-act structure, so it's unusual to divide them in half. But you know what? I felt like this made me get a lot more movie for my money, so I appreciated it. I felt like a lot happened in this movie, which was very cool. Now, I love the opening of the movie. Not only when they were going underwater and they're like, relax. That guy, one of the guys in like the little submarine pod says, everything died a long time ago. And it's like, if only you guys knew you were in a movie, right? But that was great. My favorite part was the helicopter stuff on the island. That was so good. Although, why was there only one control for the gates to close the gates? And it was like, and they put it on the island with this one guy who I think had an attitude problem, right? That didn't make any sense to me. But and also, they never really dealt, in fact, they just were like, he's going to maybe eat some swimmers, but I guess they're leaving that for the third film, that giant aquatic dinosaur escaped. But I love the whole thing with the helicopter and the guy's like, I can't hear you. And he was out, by the, it was so perfect. It was so much like the magic of the first Jurassic Park. They really, recaptured that. And everyone in the helicopter, I loved them. They were like, let's go, buddy. I don't know why he didn't immediately run. I mean, doesn't he understand hand gestures, right? Although I think it was in character that he was questioning them. And I love that behind him, with the way JA Bayona for the first time used the lightning flashes to show the T-Rex getting closer and closer. Each time the lightning flashed, it was closer. It's right behind you. It was right behind him. And that was great. And then the fact that he thought he got away and then that aquatic dinosaur ate him, that was just so perfect. I really loved it. You knew right away, you were like, this is going to be a good movie. Then on the island, good old Jurassic Park fun. One last hurrah before they blew it up, right? And I thought the baryonyx scene, that dinosaur was listed on Wikipedia, was particularly well done. Again, J.A. Bayona used that lighting trick of the lava drips, revealing the baryonyx getting closer and closer in the tunnel. I thought that was great. But then they had the whole stuff about, we got to use these controls to open this door. What's that blip on the screen? A little alien there, I guess, to some degree as well. Oh my God, it's a dinosaur, but which one is it? It's that one! Yay for people who wanted him to finally get a scene, or she, they're all she's, in the movie, right? So that was great. And then when they had to wrestle, I loved when Justice Smith had to wrestle the chair away from the dinosaur. That stuff was all great. Really, really loved it. But I think a lot of it had a nostalgia factor. That's why it worked so well. Now, the Lockwood Estate was brand spanking new, and a heck of a lot of stuff happened here. I like the dioramas, like the little private museum they had, because of course that's a nod to the American Museum of Natural History, which is famous for its dinosaur exhibits. Interestingly, not in dioramas, but also, by the way, when the lights went on, I was like, why don't you guys just freeze and pretend you're part of the exhibit? I mean, the Indoraptor was ridiculously smart, but I would have given it a shot. I guess, it was a little girl who screamed, damn it, it's always the kids. Keep it together, kid. although I liked her character quite a bit. We'll get to her momentarily. So the dioramas, I thought that was neat. I liked the underground complex, which I thought was surprisingly cozy, which I attribute to the brickwork. It added a warmth to the mad scientist area. Also, you know what else it reminded me of? It reminded me of a theme park ride, either the waiting area like online or the loading to get onto the ride. And so maybe that's one of the reasons I liked it as well. I was like, ooh, what's in here? I'm so excited. I also liked the flashback on the computer that she watched to what Blue was like as a baby, interacting with Chris Pratt, his journals. Although that other baby velociraptor was an idiot, right? Remember Chris Pratt was like, oh, I pretend that I'm injured, and the other baby velociraptor attacks. I was like, why does it always keep biting the same arm? Doesn't it learn that that arm is protected? Why doesn't it go for your leg or your face? It's like you're lucky that baby velociraptor is so stupid. But we'll talk about Blue as a baby when we get to Blue. But those flashback sequences were fabulous. But I also loved the auction. I loved it. I loved the massacre of the rich. Oh, it's so funny. They were like, all these people can die because they're rich jerks who, are bad guys too. And so that was hilarious. And the elevator scene in particular was really well done. I love when Toby Jones ran in there and those rich people were on both sides hiding. Totally caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, wow. Just like it was supposed to, but it was great. It was like actually discovering it in real life if you were running around. So I thought that was neat. And then I loved that they thought they escaped the Indoraptor, but then the door opened. I'd wish the Indoraptor had figured out how to press the button for the elevator to come back. If the Indoraptor could figure out how to use a doorknob, I think it could figure out how to, much easier just pressing a button. But it was really hilarious. And Toby Jones did a lot to sell that scene. He did a really nice job. And then, of course, this is the crucial revelation that Lockwood's granddaughter, Maisie, is a human clone, and that drove him and Hammond apart, that he used the Jurassic Park technology. Does that mean she's part amphibian? Did he have to fill in the blanks? No, he had his daughter's obviously intact DNA because she was killed or died. But I liked that drove them apart. I thought that was really, really interesting. Not only was it interesting from like a scientist perspective, but it really was important for the story. Why? Because, of course, it's Maisie that decides to let the dinosaurs out of the gas chamber, where they effectively turned it into a gas chamber with those, from the explosions and all the shenanigans downstairs, they had let a deadly gas into the facility, and these dinosaurs were literally being gassed, and it was tragic. And I was talking to my friend who I went with, and I was like, I think I would have saved those dinosaurs. I would have let them loose, I just can't do that to them. And my friend pointed out, and I thought this was very true, that you had to have a child do it, particularly a clone child, and her reasoning was they're alive like me. I wouldn't want anyone to think I was subhuman just because I'm a clone. And I'm like, it's not the clone aspect, kid. It's the fact that they're dinosaurs that's the problem. Because it is irresponsible. Like, imagine anyone camping in that area, which you can easily imagine. It's that kind of area. And just all of a sudden a T-Rex or a Velociraptor comes out. And you're like, this is very irresponsible. I thought it was crazy that during the whole movie, I actually turned to my friend and said this during the movie, and I was like, why is it that no one's called 911 and said, you might want to send some animal control to this area, right? I thought that was crazy. Maybe they're like, I don't want to get sued for this. Let's just slink away and deal with it in the third film. And I'm like, I'm cool with that. I'd love to keep going. I can't wait. I hope they do. They said they're going to make a third chapter, and I think this is off to enough of a start that and Colin Trevorrow is returning to direct. So I think they will make a third entry. If there's just too much money at Universal wrapped up in this franchise, so we will see that. So she has to make the irresponsible decision to save these dinosaurs, even though it literally means a lot of humans are going to die. Not all bad guys either, right? But it is an exciting path forward to discover, to further explore, I think, human cloning and what could go on there. And maybe splicing, just like you're making these dinosaurs. Come to think of it, just like you're making dinosaurs in a lab, you can make humans in a lab. Some of you are like, are we going to get a dino-human hybrid? Not in this movie, but maybe in the next one. So I think it's great. Now, something else I liked about this movie was the high body count. Ooh, I thought that was good. There was like legitimate danger throughout the entire movie. I loved kidnapping Daniela Pineda, because she was a dinosaur vet, basically. I thought that was excellent. I loved her line when B.D. Wong was like, this is a pure dinosaur with Blue. And she's like, no, it's not. It's I think she said it's a sock drawer in there. I thought that was great. She said, I put a bunch of T-Rex blood in there for a transfusion. I thought that was fabulous. And then I also thought it was really good that Eli, well, obviously not good, but good for the story that Eli killed Lockwood. Although Lockwood was so stupid, he's like, turn yourself in, man. And I'm like, how do you think this is going to go down, James Cromwell, with your crappy British accent, right? But I thought they handled the murder very tastefully for a family movie. You know, he just grabs the pillow. It was very like 1940s movies. And then his cane goes crashing to the floor, and you're like, oh, I guess it was the set with Hammonds, but it was very good. I wish he'd had like human DNA in there, like a tooth or something. That would have been funny. But also very tragic. All right, so let's talk about the characters. I want to talk about the dinosaurs first, obviously. Jurassic World. And we have to start with Blue. I loved Baby Blue. I felt Baby Blue's empathy towards, Chris Pratt's character. It was just really moving, genuinely. But you know what I thought was weird that took me out of those scenes just a little bit? I've never seen adult Blue be that empathetic. I was like, what happened to that quality? You know, like, with the baby version of Blue, I saw the breakthrough and that human could control Raptor. But as an adult, it seems so loose to me that I almost don't believe it at points, right? I mean, I know maybe as she gets older, her murderous instincts become stronger, and so she is harder to control. And I gotta tell you, I had a goldfish who, if I left for a couple of days, totally forgot who I was. And goldfish aren't far from dinosaurs. They're water dinosaurs, right? And there are some water dinosaurs in this movie. So I would wonder, I'd be like, you haven't seen Blue for a while. I think there's a very good chance that dinosaur has no idea who the heck you are. I mean, I would not, my goldfish was not dangerous, but I wouldn't trust it. Let's just put it that way. And I love the ending when Chris Pratt was like, come live on my farm with me, Blue. And I was like, that would be awesome for the next movie, right? He's on his farm and there's just a velociraptor roaming free. But I love that Blue looked at the cage and then looked back at Chris Pratt and was like, no thanks, you humans can't help yourself. But it reminded me actually of Selena Kyle in Batman Returns, where she, but in both cases, is like, I'd love to go live with you in your castle, but I couldn't live with myself. I thought that was great. I thought that was so fun. It was fabulous. That was the most human I've actually ever seen Blue. That was great. And it was very powerful too, right? Like you humans, you think you're good, but you're just not. Then as for the Indoraptor, I like one of you had a joke when I talked about I tweeted out my review and I said, Indoraptor rules. And someone was like, Indoraptor, I prefer the outdoor raptor. And I was like, hilarious. So that was a good one. Kudos to whoever tweeted that to me. But for me, in the movie, when I fell in love with this dinosaur was when it fainted. I don't know if any of you caught this, but it did a legit faint, oh my, I do declare. And I was like, the way it twisted its legs, and I was like, what's your frame of reference for this Indoraptor? Who have you seen faint this way? It was so melodramatic and so damsel in distress. I thought it was hilarious. Really, this was like an evil cartoon villain often. So I really thought that was great. Like when it reached out through the bars and was like, hello, little girl. And I'm like, who designed this dinosaur? They're like, and B.D. Wong's like, I put in a bitch gene. And you're like, hilarious. I love that you did it. It was just fantastic. Also, I thought it was so odd that the Indoraptor had a grudge against Maisie, right? Like it couldn't smell that she was a clone, right? So I don't know why it was so insistent on trying to kill this kid. I'd be like, peace out, Indoraptor. Go find some other dinner, right? Like there's people running all over this facility or in the woods. Why on earth do you want to kill this kid so badly to your own detriment? And it ended up killing the Indoraptor. I thought it was weird. I mean, I don't know. I wish that they had a backstory where maybe this kid wasn't nice to the dinosaur. I mean, she was such a nice kid that wouldn't happen, but I don't know. Maybe the Indoraptor felt that Lockwood, rightfully so, or Eli favored her, right? I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me that this dinosaur was insistent on killing this kid. Now, as for the human characters, Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard together were just so amazing in this movie. Now, in my non-spoiler review, I said that I thought, and almost said out loud when he rescued her underwater when the geosphere, went off the side of the cliff, I almost said to Bryce Dallas Howard, you should just marry this guy. Now, you might think that I said that because, he's so sexy. But here's the thing. The sexiest thing about his character in this movie, and why I was inspired to think that and almost say it, was how much he cared about her character, right? The love was just so strong, and he was willing to literally do anything to protect her and take care of her. I think that's what love and being a couple, I think, is about, just being there for each other and completing each other. They really seem like two halves of one whole, and that was just, it was amazing. It was great. Even that moment, and also when they were they found each other sleeping on each other, and they both, didn't pretended that the other one didn't know about. Oh, actually, he only did, but she didn't want him to know that she had her hand under his shirt, sleeping very soundly, but like in a sweet way. Get your mind out of the gutter. But I thought that was just great. I thought it was really, really nice. They felt like a real couple to me, ups and downs, And this movie was them realizing, why are they fighting it? They belong together, right? And I hope that they continue to stay together in the third film. It looks like they're going to raise Maisie, the clone girl. So, although she's pretty big already, but I think that's clearly where the franchise seems to be headed for the third entry. And I liked, by the way, that Eli said that these two are the parents of Jurassic World, right? With Bryce Dallas Howard, helping with the science and the creation of the dinosaurs in the first place as the overseer of the theme park, and then Chris Pratt, breaking down that barrier so that humans can interact with dinosaurs more so. I thought it was really nice. And it didn't seem like forced or sloppy, like, you don't have to tell me movie. I was like, oh, thanks for pointing that out. I like it. And then for Jeff Goldblum, who had the best line in the movie, which I can now spoil because either you've seen the movie or you're choosing to watch spoilers, which, that's up to you, whatever your choice is, but I still hope you go and see the movie. So anyway, his line, he said, "Change is like death. You don't know what it looks like until you're standing at the pearly gates." And I was like, wow, bam, that's as good as his multiple good lines in the first Jurassic Park. And I hope that Jeff Goldblum sticks around. It really does feel more like the franchise with him there. Although I would love to see Sam Neill and Laura Dern come back as well, in addition to also the kids from the first movie. Unfortunately, Richard Attenborough has passed away. They could clone him, though. We'll talk about that in my ideas for the third entry. So as for the rest of the human cast, they're all very good. Everyone does a great job. I mean, particularly Rafe Spall and I think Toby Jones, who were great villains. They really, very evil. But there's not too much to say about the other actors. They were just good. They were good. I don't think there was any standouts like Samuel L. Jackson or Wayne Knight in the first movie. But they didn't drag the movie down. They did their job. But there was one thing that I found odd. One other thing about the human cast, and that's that Geraldine Chaplin, Charlie Chaplin's daughter, had a bit part. They didn't even give her like a good dino interaction scene, right? You'd think they'd at least have her there to do some kind of potentially classic scene. So I just thought that was really weird. I was like, why'd you throw Geraldine Chaplin in here? It'd be like if, Judi Dench just showed up and said, coffee, and then left. And you'd be like, what? But I just love this movie. I loved it so much. It was so atmospheric. I think that's a really good way to describe it. And I also think that it added a lot to the franchise. It moved the franchise forward significantly, it reestablished the park with the last film. And then I think it really moved to new terrain, which I have great respect for. And also I think it gave some great ideas for future theme park attractions. But I don't want to undercut the storytelling. I don't love this movie because of the theme park aspects. I mean, that helps. But I think even just as a movie on its own, it stands very strongly. I loved it. Again, favorite entry since the first. So that's my spoiler review. I look forward to hearing your thoughts down below. You can say anything you want because this is the spoiler review. And of course, as always, you can check out some more episodes right now.